My name is Linda Hart. I'm 14 years old. The day my mother died, it felt like someone had reached inside my chest and switched off the world. The light in our house dimmed. Even the air seemed to move slower. I remember sitting at the edge of her hospital bed, her hand in mine, her voice barely a whisper when she said, "Promise me you'll still laugh, Evie." I promised, but I never did. Not for a long time. My father Robert wasn't cruel, but he was distant, the kind of man who thought fixing a broken pipe was the same as fixing a broken heart. When Mom died, I thought maybe we'd finally talk. Maybe he'd notice how shattered I was. But instead, he buried himself in work. Every night, he'd come home late, loosen his tie, and say, "You doing okay?" as if it were a formality. Then he'd disappear into his study and close the door. For weeks, the house was filled with silence. Her perfume still lingered in the curtains. Her laugh still echoed faintly in my head. Every time I walked past her favorite chair, I'd pause half expecting her to be there teasing me about my messy hair. Then, one afternoon, I came home from school and heard laughter in the kitchen. My stomach twisted. It wasn't Dad's laugh. It was lighter, unfamiliar. I froze in the hallway. A woman stood by the counter pouring coffee into Mom's old mug. My mom's mug. The one with a small crack near the handle. When she saw me, she smiled brightly. "You must be Linda. I've heard so much about you." I couldn't move. My backpack slipped from my shoulder and hit the floor with a thud. My father walked in his face, lighting up awkwardly. "Eve, this is Claire. We've been seeing each other." 2 months. 2 months after Mom's funeral, and there was a stranger in our kitchen laughing, holding her mug, pretending to belong. I didn't answer. I just stared at him, then at her. Claire's smile faltered slightly, but she still tried to sound warm. "Your dad's told me what a smart young woman you are." I turned away and went upstairs, shutting my door before they could say another word. I didn't cry that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, my chest burning with something that wasn't grief anymore. It was anger. The following weeks blurred together. Claire started coming around more often. Sometimes she'd bring food, sometimes she'd help clean, always humming as she moved through the house like she already owned it. My dad acted like everything was normal. Every time I rolled my eyes or ignored her, he'd sigh and say, "Linda, give her a chance." A chance to what? Replace my mother. By the time my 15th birthday came, Claire wasn't just a visitor, she'd moved in. I remember the dinner clearly. My dad made pasta, his attempt at celebration. Claire sat across from me. Her nails painted a pale pink, a color too soft for someone so intrusive. After we ate, she put down her fork and smiled at me, that same rehearsed smile. "Linda," she said, "your dad and I have something exciting to share." My heart sank. I already knew it was bad. Dad reached across the table and held her hand. "We're engaged," he said, smiling, like he'd just given me good news. For a moment, all sound disappeared. I stared at them, their hands intertwined over the tablecloth. Claire was glowing, showing off a diamond ring that caught the light from the chandelier. I pushed my plate away. "You're joking," Linda, my dad, began. But I stood up before he could finish. "This is Mom's birthday week," I snapped, "and you're celebrating this." The silence that followed was suffocating. Then I grabbed the cake they'd bought, chocolate my favorite, and flipped it onto the floor. It hit with a soft, wet splatter. "I don't want this," I said, voice shaking. Then I left. I didn't come home for 2 days. Stayed at a friend's house. My phone buzzed with dozens of missed calls, but I ignored them all. When I finally returned, the air in the house felt wrong, cold, too clean. It took me less than a minute to realize why. Every picture of my mother was gone. The framed one on the mantel, the one where she was holding me as a baby, gone. The family photo in the hallway, gone. Her books, her coat, her favorite vase with pressed flowers, all gone. It was like she'd been erased. My chest tightened. I ran to the living room. "Dad, what happened to Mom's stuff?" He didn't even look up from his newspaper. "We're moving forward," he said simply. "Moving forward?" My voice cracked. "By deleting her." He folded the paper slowly, finally meeting my eyes. "You need to let go, Linda. It's time." I wanted to scream. Instead, I ran to my room, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. I searched every corner, every drawer. Most of her things were gone, but not everything. I found her silver bracelet behind my bookshelf, a photo album wedged under old notebooks, and her favorite scarf still carrying her perfume. I clutched them to my chest like they were oxygen. I hid them under my bed that night, whispering, "They won't take you from me." Downstairs, I could hear Claire laughing softly. My father's voice joined hers. For the first time, I realized something terrifying. My home wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to them, to their laughter, their secrets, and their idea of moving on. I turned off the light, the scarf still in my hands, and thought, Mom, I don't think he ever loved you the way I did. Outside, the house felt silent. Inside, something had already begun to rot. The first morning after Claire officially moved in, I came downstairs to the smell of cinnamon. For a second, half awake, I thought Mom was baking again. My heart leapt, then dropped just as fast when I saw Claire standing by the oven, humming, wearing Mom's old apron. She turned and smiled when she noticed me. Good morning, Linda. I made cinnamon rolls. They were your mom's favorite, right? The way she said your mom's soft practice, like she'd rehearsed it, made me want to throw the plate across the room. Instead, I said nothing. I poured myself black coffee and walked out. It became her routine, filling the silence with forced warmth, pretending everything was fine. She'd leave cookies in the kitchen with little notes. Have a sweet day, or you're doing great at school. I never touched them. It wasn't kindness. It was strategy. Dad ate it up. See? She's trying, he said one night at dinner. I didn't ask her to. Linda, it wouldn't kill you to be polite. She's not my mom. Enough. His tone was final, like a slammed door. After that, I learned to speak less. Silence became my armor. But Claire didn't stop trying to play her role. She started decorating, rearranging furniture, painting over Mom's favorite blue walls with a dull beige. It'll brighten the space, she said cheerfully. I wanted to scream. Mom had chosen that soft blue herself. She said it made the house feel calm. Now it felt like a stranger's living room. Claire's performance only grew bolder. She started sitting beside me during TV nights, asking about my classes, my friends. I gave one-word answers, hoping she'd get the hint. But she'd just smile and say, You remind me so much of myself at your age. No, I thought, you could never be me. The breaking point came in the most humiliating way. One Saturday, Dad dragged me to the grocery store with them. He said we'd do something normal for once. I trailed behind them, down the cereal aisle, counting the minutes until I could leave. Then Claire ran into a woman she knew. They hugged, all fake cheer and perfume. Oh, Claire said, beaming. This is my daughter, Linda. My stomach turned. The woman looked at me and smiled politely. She's lovely. I'm not her daughter, I said flatly. She's my dad's wife. The air froze. Claire's smile cracked her face, reddening. The other woman mumbled an excuse and hurried off. Dad didn't say a word, not there anyway. But the moment we got home, he exploded. You embarrassed her in public. Do you have any idea how that made her feel? Good, I said. Maybe she'll stop pretending. He slammed his hand on the counter, eyes blazing. She's trying, Linda. You're the one making this impossible. She's making it impossible. She's not my mom, and she never will be. I ran upstairs before the argument could spiral further. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely close the door. I fell to the floor breathless, staring at the crack under my bed where I'd hidden Mom's things. That night I took the photo album out. The pages were worn, corners bent, the pictures fading, but alive. I ran my fingers over one Mom, laughing at the beach hair, wild from the wind. I whispered, She's trying to take you away. The door creaked open. Claire stood there, uninvited. Her voice was soft. Oh, you have pictures of your mom. I slammed the album shut. Why do you care? She hesitated. I'd love to see them sometime. Why? She's not your family. Something flickered in her eyes, hurt, anger, maybe both. She left without another word. That night, Dad didn't speak to me. Neither did Claire. The house felt heavy every breath, thick with things left unsaid. A few days later, I found my bedroom door slightly open when I came home from school. My gut twisted. I checked under the bed. My box was there, but the scarf was missing. I tore the room apart. Then I found it folded neatly on Claire's dresser. For a moment, I just stood there staring at it, my heart pounding in my throat. She hadn't taken it by mistake. She'd displayed it like it belonged to her. I took it back quietly that night, wrapping it twice around my wrist. It smelled faintly of my mother's perfume, soft jasmine, fading, but stubborn. Downstairs, Claire and Dad were laughing again, the sound of two people pretending nothing was broken. But in that moment, I understood something important. Claire didn't just want my father. She wanted everything that used to be my mother's. Her space, her memories, even me. And I wasn't going to let her have it. By the time I turned 18, I didn't recognize the house I grew up in anymore. The photos on the walls weren't ours. They were Claire's curated version of our life. Her family, her friends, her vacations. My mother's favorite painting had been replaced by a mirror trimmed in gold. She said it made the room look bigger. What it really did was remind me how small I felt in my own home. Leaving for university was supposed to be my escape. I didn't tell anyone, not even Dad, until the day before I left. When I wheeled my suitcase to the door, he stood in the hallway looking uncertain. Linda, do you really have to move out so soon? Yes, I said. Claire hovered behind him, pretending to tidy a stack of mail that didn't need tidying. We'll miss you, she said softly. This house won't feel the same without you. I met her eyes and smiled coldly. That's the point. When the door shut behind me, I expected to feel relief, and for a while I did. The world outside that house felt wider, cleaner, full of air I could finally breathe. College life was a blur of lectures, cheap coffee, and late-night talks with people who didn't know my story. They didn't need to. For the first time, I could exist without being compared to anyone's ghost. Still, sometimes when I was alone, I'd catch a faint scent of jasmine and feel that familiar ache again. Mom. Every few weeks, Dad would call. Our conversations were short, mechanical. How's school? Fine. Need anything? No. Then there'd be a pause, the faint rustle of paper, and he'd clear his throat. Claire says hi. That was my cue to end the call. I stopped visiting home altogether, but Claire found other ways to follow me. One evening, my roommate scrolled through her phone and said, Hey, Linda, your mom posted something about your scholarship. That's so sweet. I froze. My what? She turned the screen toward me. Claire's Facebook page. There it was. A photo of me from my high school graduation captioned, So proud of my daughter Linda. She's growing up so fast. My vision blurred with rage. She'd stolen my photo, posted it without permission, claimed me like some trophy. I messaged her instantly, delete that. I'm not your daughter. She replied within minutes. I'm sorry, honey. I just wanted to celebrate you. You'll understand someday. I blocked her. Then I called Dad. He picked up on the second ring. Why is Claire posting about me? He sighed. Linda, she means well. She's lying to people about being my mother. She just wants to feel included. You know how she is. I don't care how she is. My voice cracked. You promised you'd never let her cross that line. She's trying to make peace by erasing the truth. The silence that followed said everything. He wasn't going to defend me. He never did. After that call, I cried for the first time in years, not because of Claire, but because of him. Because he let it happen. Months passed. I built a new life, friends, work, a rhythm that didn't revolve around loss. Then in my third year, I met Daniel. He was gentle where my father was rigid honest, where Claire was false. We met during a literature seminar. He lent me his notes after I missed a class, and I bought him coffee to thank him. By the third cup, we were finishing each other's sentences. Daniel didn't flinch when I told him about my mother, or Claire, or the emptiness that followed. He just said, You don't owe them peace if it costs you yours. We got engaged a year later, quietly, privately. Just us. But word travels fast. Someone from our hometown saw the post and mentioned it to my dad. That night, my phone buzzed with a message, Dad, you're engaged. Why didn't you tell us? I ignored it. An hour later, another message came from Claire. Claire, hi, sweetheart. We just heard the wonderful news. Your dad and I are overjoyed. We can't wait to meet Daniel and start planning the big day. I deleted it without replying. The next morning, I woke up to notifications exploding on my phone. Claire had posted again a long, gushing message with a photo of me and Daniel she must have found online. Our daughter is getting married. So proud of the woman she's become. Can't wait to be a grandma someday. I stared at the screen, my blood boiling. Our daughter. Grandma. No. That night, I made a post of my own. No filters, no sugarcoating. I am not, and have never been, Claire's daughter. Please stop congratulating her. It went viral within hours. Friends, relatives, even old classmates saw it. Comments poured in sympathy, confusion, gossip. Then the phone rang. It was Dad. What the hell was that post? He shouted. Do you have any idea how humiliated Claire feels? Maybe now she knows how I've felt for years. You could have handled it privately. I've been handling it privately since I was 14. He went quiet, then softer. She just wants to be part of your life. Then she should have stayed out of Mom's. I hung up before he could reply. For the first time, I didn't feel guilt, just exhaustion. I thought that post would be the end of it, that maybe finally Claire would give up her fantasy. But I underestimated her, because a few weeks later, she and my father moved into a house 5 minutes away from ours. 5 minutes. And that was when everything started again. The day I saw the moving truck, I thought it was a coincidence. Daniel and I had just bought our first home, small, imperfect, but ours, the kind of place my mother would have loved. We were still unpacking boxes when I looked out the window and saw him. My father, standing in the driveway across the street. Claire was beside him, holding a bouquet of flowers and a Tupperware box, waving like we were old friends reuniting. For a second, my brain refused to process it. I hadn't spoken to them in over a year. They weren't supposed to be here. They weren't supposed to know where here even was. Daniel came up behind me, frowning. "Who's that, my nightmare?" I whispered. Then came the knock. Claire's voice all syrup and nerves. "Linda, sweetheart. Surprise. We just moved nearby. Isn't that wonderful?" I opened the door, halfway blocking the entry. "How did you find this address?" She smiled like she hadn't heard the question. "We brought cookies. Your dad wanted to say hi, no." My tone was sharp enough to cut glass. "You need to leave." Dad stepped forward, frowning. "Linda, don't be like this. We're just trying to reconnect." "Reconnecting doesn't mean showing up uninvited," Daniel said, stepping beside me. Claire's smile faltered. "We just wanted to be closer to family, especially with your wedding coming up." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was unbelievable. "You're not family. You never were." I shut the door before they could answer. That night, Daniel held me as I trembled with anger and disbelief. "They moved here on purpose," I said. "They're trying to crawl back in." "Let's not jump to conclusions," he murmured. But even he didn't sound convinced. The next morning, there was a note taped to our door, in perfect cursive handwriting. "We're only 5 minutes away now. Let's start fresh." 5 minutes. That phrase stuck in my mind like a splinter. For the first few days, I told myself they'd keep their distance. But soon the coincidences started. I'd see Dad's car idling near our street. Claire would appear at the grocery store pretending to bump into me. "Oh, fancy seeing you here," she'd chirp. Every time I turned a corner, it felt like they were there, smiling, watching, waiting. Daniel tried to reassure me. "Maybe it's harmless," he said. "Maybe they really do just want to fix things." But he didn't see Claire's eyes the way I did. That desperate gleam, the kind that said she wasn't visiting, she was claiming. One weekend, we were walking in the park, enjoying the quiet, when I spotted them sitting on a bench across the path. Claire waved, her face lit with a rehearsed grin. Dad raised a hand. I turned to Daniel. "We're leaving." "They're just sitting there," he said. "They're following us." We left without a word, but I could feel their eyes on our backs until we disappeared from view. Later that evening, a Facebook notification popped up. "Claire tagged you in a photo." My blood went cold. It was a blurry shot of me and Daniel at the park, clearly taken from a distance. Her caption, "So happy to see my daughter today. She's glowing." I felt my stomach twist. "She's watching us," I said. "She's taking pictures." Daniel tried to report the post, but by the time we did, she had already deleted it. A few nights later, someone knocked on our door at 9:30 p.m. I looked through the peephole, Claire again, holding a wrapped box. I didn't open it. She called softly through the door. "It's just a little something for your new home, Linda. A family always needs blessings." I stayed silent. Eventually, she left the box on the porch and walked away. When I opened it later, my hands shook. Inside was a small porcelain figurine of a mother holding a child. There was a note taped underneath, "No matter how far you run, you'll always be mine." Daniel's face went pale when he saw it. "She's unstable," he said quietly. "We're calling a lawyer." But I wasn't just scared anymore. I was furious. I picked up the figurine, stared at it, then threw it into the trash with a crack. She can't have me. Not again. Over the next week, we installed a cheap security camera by the door. It was old secondhand, but it gave me a sense of control, or at least the illusion of it. 2 nights later, I was reviewing footage from the camera when I froze. There she was, Claire, standing on our porch at midnight. She didn't knock. She didn't ring the bell. She just stood there for 6 minutes, staring at the door. When she finally left, she turned toward the camera and smiled. I felt a chill run through my entire body. That smile wasn't an accident. It was a message. The next morning, I called my father. He answered on the second ring, sounding tired. "Linda, you need to stop her," I said, voice shaking. "She's crossing every line." He sighed. "She's just emotional. She misses you, misses me. She's stalking me, Dad. She doesn't mean harm. You're overreacting." Something inside me broke then. "You really don't see it, do you? You've spent so long defending her, you can't tell when she's destroying me." He didn't reply, just a quiet exhale, resignation, guilt, or maybe indifference. That was the last time I spoke to him. The next morning, another note appeared on our porch. Family should never have to hide from each other. And that's when I realized Claire wasn't just trying to be part of my life anymore. She was trying to take it over. After the night, Claire stared into our camera. Sleep became a luxury. Every sound made me flinch, the wind rattling the window, a car slowing outside, even the pipes humming through the walls. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, convinced I heard footsteps on the porch. Daniel tried to stay calm for both of us, but I could see the tension in his jaw, the way his eyes darted toward the window whenever a car passed. We both knew this wasn't normal anymore. This wasn't just an overbearing stepmother, it was obsession. I started keeping a log of everything: dates, times, photos, and screenshots. Claire's deleted posts. The late night knocks, the way she and my father appeared wherever we went. Daniel thought it was paranoid at first, but when he saw her standing outside our local cafe again, watching through the glass as we talked, he finally understood. We went to a lawyer the next day. He listened quietly, his face unreadable, then said, "Legally, she's walking a thin line, but she hasn't broken the law yet. You'll need evidence of harassment or trespassing." I showed him the midnight footage. He frowned. "That's a start. Keep documenting. If it continues, we'll escalate." It continued. 1 week later, around 2 a.m., I was half asleep when the doorbell camera pinged my phone. I opened the live feed and felt the blood drain from my face. Claire was back. She wasn't just standing there. This time she tried the doorknob. Gently at first, then harder. The sound echoed through the quiet house like a rattle in my chest. I whispered, "She's trying to get in." Daniel jumped up, grabbed the baseball bat from under the bed, and crept toward the door. But by the time he reached it, she was gone, vanished into the dark. We called the police immediately. The officer who showed up looked sympathetic but helpless. "She didn't break in, ma'am. We can file an incident report, but there's not much else we can do unless she trespasses again." I wanted to scream, "So she can keep doing this until something happens." He didn't answer, just nodded politely and left. The next morning, Daniel suggested staying at a hotel for a few nights. I refused. If we leave, she wins. She'll think she can scare me out of my own home. Instead, we fortified. Extra locks, new lights, cameras on every angle of the yard. Even motion sensors along the driveway. Daniel called it overkill. I called it surviving. But paranoia has a way of becoming part of you. Every creak of the floorboards made my heart race. Sometimes I'd catch myself staring at the door for minutes, waiting for it to move. A week passed in silence, then another. For a brief moment, I thought maybe she'd stopped. Maybe the letter from our lawyer had finally gotten through. Then the package arrived. No return address. Just my name in neat looping handwriting. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a single photo. Me as a child sitting on my mother's lap, and next to it a note written in blue ink. "You look so much like her. Maybe that's why I love you the way I do." I dropped the photo as if it burned. Daniel picked it up carefully, his face hardening. "We're done being polite," he said. We drove straight to the police station with every piece of evidence: the footage, the notes, the messages, the package. The officer we spoke to this time was younger, sharper. He took one look at the video of her twisting our doorknob and said, "You've got enough to file for a restraining order." I remember the relief flooding through me as he handed us the paperwork. Finally, I whispered, "Finally, she can't come near us again." But relief doesn't erase fear. The court date came 2 weeks later. I sat on one side of the room, clutching Daniel's hand. On the other side, Claire sat beside my father, wearing a pale pink dress, and that same placid smile as if she were the victim. When the judge asked if she had anything to say, Claire stood, voice trembling with mock sincerity. "I never meant to frighten her. I just wanted to rebuild our relationship. I've loved her like my own since she was 14. Her eyes found mine soft, watery, pretending to break. I only wanted to be her mother. Something inside me snapped. "You took my mother from me," I said, voice shaking. "And then you tried to replace her. You erased her. You've been haunting me for years, pretending it's love." Claire's face changed for just a moment, the smile fading into something cold, sharp, unmasked. Then she sat down again, folding her hands neatly. The judge granted the restraining order. 500 feet. No visits, no calls, no messages. For the first time in nearly a decade, I felt like I could breathe. When we got home, I stood in the doorway, the same one she'd tried to open, and whispered, "Not this time." Daniel wrapped his arms around me. "It's over," he said, but I wasn't so sure. Because even as I turned off the lights and tried to sleep, I couldn't shake one thought. Claire didn't lose because she was stopped. She lost because she'd finally gotten exactly what she wanted, my attention. And I wasn't sure she'd ever stop trying to keep it. The restraining order came through just 3 days before I gave birth. The timing felt almost poetic, like life itself had drawn a line between what was old and what was new. When I held my son for the first time, everything in me softened. His skin was warm against my chest, his little hand gripping my finger as if he already knew how to anchor me. For that one moment, the world outside didn't exist. Not Claire, not my father, not the years of silence and fear. Just me, Daniel, and the tiny heartbeat between us. But peace is fragile. 2 weeks after we brought our son home, Claire tried to challenge the restraining order. The courthouse email arrived while I was feeding the baby. My hands trembled so hard I nearly dropped the bottle. Daniel read the message out loud. His voice flat controlled, but I could hear the fury beneath it. She's saying the order is unfair and based on a misunderstanding, that she's just a grandmother trying to reconnect. Grandmother. I laughed, though it came out more like a sob. She'll never stop. She can't accept a world where she's not the center of it. We went back to court a week later. I sat at the same table, exhausted and hollow-eyed, the hospital bracelet still faintly marking my wrist. Claire walked in wearing a dove-gray suit, her hair perfectly styled, my father trailing behind her like a shadow. She looked straight at me and smiled. For the first time, I didn't look away. When the judge asked if she had anything new to add, she launched into another performance, her voice soft, trembling, every word soaked in self-pity. Your Honor. I never meant to scare Linda. I love her. I've always loved her. I thought with the baby coming, maybe we could put the past behind us. The judge leaned back unimpressed. You tried her doorknob in the middle of the night, Mrs. Walker. You left letters and came to her property after being told not to. Claire's mask slipped just slightly. I only wanted to make sure she was safe. She was safe, the judge said firmly, until you showed up. He upheld the restraining order and extended it for 5 years, adding stricter terms. Claire's face drained of color. My father reached for her hand, but she pulled it away. For once she wasn't performing. She looked empty. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt tired. As we left the courthouse, I saw my father watching me from across the hallway. He looked older, smaller somehow. Our eyes met for a second, and he mouthed, I'm sorry. But it was too late for sorry. That night, when Daniel and I finally got home, I stood in the nursery holding our son. The soft glow from the nightlight cast little shadows on the wall. His breathing was calm, steady. I brushed my hand through his tiny hair and whispered, You'll never grow up like I did. You'll never have to wonder who loves you and who's pretending. Daniel came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. He's got you, he said quietly. That's enough. We spent the next few weeks adjusting to life as new parents, the sleepless nights, the endless feedings, the strange mix of exhaustion and joy. For the first time in years, laughter filled the house again. Real laughter. Still, sometimes I'd catch myself looking out the window toward the street, toward that invisible 5-minute distance where Claire and my father still lived. The thought always sent a chill down my spine. One evening, as Daniel rocked the baby to sleep, I stepped outside for air. The world was calm, a soft breeze, the scent of rain on concrete. Then I saw it. An envelope slipped under our mailbox flap. No stamp, no address, just my name written in that same looping handwriting. My chest tightened. I hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper. It read, 5 minutes isn't that far, Linda. Maybe someday you'll need me again. I stood there under the porch light, the words blurring in my hands. I wanted to tear it apart, to scream, to run, but instead I folded it carefully, walked back inside, and locked the door. Daniel looked at me, concern flickering in his eyes. What's wrong? I shook my head. Nothing that can reach us anymore. He didn't press. He didn't need to. I slid the letter into the same box under our bed, the one that still held my mother's photo album, her scarf, her bracelet. A reminder that some ghosts never disappear, they just grow quieter. As I watched our son sleep that night, I realized something. My mother's memory had survived every attempt to erase her. And now, in my son's tiny heartbeat, she lived again in every gentle touch, every promise of love that wasn't performative but real. Claire could stand 5 minutes away or 5 miles, and it wouldn't matter, because she'd never get any closer than that. And for the first time since I was 14, I felt safe saying it. I'm home.